Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Same Old Arsenal podcast. It's me, Suburban Greener Chris, and my wonderful partner in crime in the absence of Amanda this evening, who sends her best wishes to everyone in the chat. So she's on a cruise somewhere, but she did manage to watch, and she did say that, yes, so proud of the boys. This podcast is sponsored by Ruth Beck Art and not a certain brand of apple-based fizzy drink that Mr. Cook is drinking right now. But we are going to digest the Man City versus 115 charges plus Michael Oliver FC against the Arsenal today. And to do it, Mr. Cook, how are you feeling after that absolute gut punch, 10 seconds away from picking up what would have been quite a remarkable win in very trying circumstances? And we're going to digest it, and not least me, I'm going to get ragey. But how are you feeling?
I'm actually quite sweaty at the minute, Chris. Just been pacing around my front room, clammy hands, legs are aching, kind of just been doing semi-squats, trying to watch that game just to try and get some energy off the top of my head. Yeah, it was a gut punch after that second half where we performed so admirably. So many things to be proud of in that second half performance, just to reduce City to basically nothing. And I think the thing that's most frustrating is it's just such a jammy goal that we've conceded. It's not like they've pulled us apart, worked it really well. It's just a bit of a ricochet, bit of clumsiness in the box, false of stones, right place, right time, back of the net. If it wasn't for that split seconds that happens to come at the end of the game, we could well be coming away with 3 points. But look, I'm going to put a positive on this. I was saying before the game to you, or actually before we went on the stream, that imagine we were the ones that scored in the very last second of the game to make it 2-2. Obviously, that's not the context of it, but just try to envisage that situation to make yourselves feel a little bit better. And then that aside, 7 points from Villa away, Spurs away, City away. I think a lot of us probably would have taken 5. So to have got 7 from these games, and they're all ticked off with still a week to go in September, is brilliant. They've got to come to us next. You know, the only real serious tough away game we've got, I would say, on paper, Liverpool away. But apart from that, I'd fancy us against pretty much any other side in the Premier League away from home. So, yeah, frustrated, Chris, but a shed load of positives that I'm happy to talk about tonight.
Yeah, and you and I talked on Thursday, so 3 days ago. Let's just drop this into the mixer. Man City played on Wednesday. Arsenal played on Thursday. And we'll have had to have travelled back just 2 days ago. So we were talking on Thursday night about the scheduling, and I said to you, I think we're going to lose. I just think the schedule, some of the injuries, the fatigue that's going to set in, it might catch up with us. So if both of us were talking about this, if you'd have offered me a draw back then, I would have absolutely bitten your hand off for it 110%. So I'm still feeling the raw emotion of that last minute goal. I'm still feeling the raw emotion of some of the decision making from the referees. So if you're feeling that raw emotion too, let us know in the chat. I'll pop up some of the thoughts of people that are joining us right now. And also, if you've got any questions, feel free to pop them. James and I will get round to them at some stage towards the end. But yeah, I'm still feeling quite raw. This is an instant reaction. You're going to get that. You're going to get the emotion. But if and I said this to my wife, we went for a walk 5-10 minutes beforehand. Well, probably half an hour before the game kicked off, because I needed to kind of like decompress and be outside in nature and the air. And she said, like, what's your feelings? And I said, look, if someone said to me a draw right now, I'd absolutely take it. I should have listened to her because she does the Sky Sports Super 6 and she predicted a 2-2. And I was like, it's never going to be 2-2. These are two sort of chess game managers, that this will be decided by one goal, but we didn't get that. Let's talk, James, about let's analyze this chronologically. So let's kick off with the lineups. So no De Bruyne for City. Other than that, it was pretty much the sort of side that you'd expect. What was your kind of feeling around Arteta's decisions? Because for me, it either felt a little bit he's trying to galaxy brain, or he's trying to sort of double think Pep. But what did you think about the lineup? I wasn't that much against it. I didn't hate the lineup. I thought it was a good collective of Arsenal players. No Ben White for the first time in like 2 years. So interesting, eh?
Yeah, that was the one that really caught me off guard. And we saw, I think, a couple of hours before kickoff that he might have been carrying a slight injury following the Atalanta game. So if that was the case, it's nice to be in a situation where you can just simply swap Timber over to the right-hand side and bring in a player as good as Calafiori. So I was a little bit nervous about the amount of change that was happening in the back line, in the sense of you're taking Timber from one position that he's played all season, moving him to another, and then you're bringing in Calafiori. But I thought, both of them did really well. I'm sure we'll get on to analyse Calafiori a bit more on the Savinho moment before the Haaland goal. Yeah, I mean, it was the sort of lineup I expected. The only other change that I maybe would have made was Jorginho in for Partey. I thought Partey could have done better on the first goal as well. But again, when we're dropping into that kind of defensive block, that's kind of where you see Partey coming to his own a little bit. I thought he was pretty good at the defensive side of things today. It's just some areas of his game where I think it's quite obvious that he's starting to regress. But yeah, in terms of lineup, pretty happy with it. I thought it was a pretty even lineup with City's on paper, given that they were missing Kevin De Bruyne. We obviously had no Odegaard. So yeah, I was perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, I thought Calafiori was an interesting introduction. He's sort of, I feel like he's been building up to playing this, and Timber on the right. I do wonder if, like they said, Ben White, I think some people had said Ben White had a knock, but I do wonder if Arteta was going for dual monsters, because he picked big guys, strong guys, and Ben White has been exposed once or twice. Like when I say exposed, like I'm really nitpicking, because we all know he's a fantastic defender, and like I'd be more than happy to see him start, but it just felt like Jurriën Timber has looked very impressive at left back, and I was quite okay with it. I thought he'd play Jorginho, if I'm honest, because Jorginho has played quite well against City and Liverpool the last couple of times that we've played them. But broadly speaking, I was kind of okay with it. But then we get into the first 10 minutes, and it did look like we were a bit all over the place. Like you referenced, obviously, the goal. Let's talk about the goal, because it happened so early on 8 minutes. But for me, it felt like we were very passive. It felt like we were just sussing City out, get our shape. We knew that they'd probably come at us, and City pressed us really high quite early. I was very nervous in the first 5 minutes, and in 8 minutes, the defending isn't great. I think I can't work out, and I'd love to get your view here on the Savio. The way he receives the ball and just turns Calafiori, is that poor on Calafiori? Was it just a brilliant turn? So that's the first question to you. And then the second one, I just think our two central defenders just got a little bit mixed up, didn't they? And it wasn't a good goal to concede, I didn't think.
Yeah, I think touching on City's fast start, I mean, City in the first 15, 20 minutes were as good as I've seen City in a while. I mean, I don't watch a lot of Man City, but when I do, I mean, they do seem to start a little bit slower, suss teams out, but no, they really went for it today. And just their movement around the box, in the box, those quick passing combinations, I was really worried. And especially when they scored, I feared that if we didn't get our act together sharpish, we could have lost this game about 3-0, because City really did feel like they were that up for it today. But thankfully, we managed to get a bit more control back, and we, in years gone by, would have lost this game by a significant margin. But those years are thankfully long gone. And on the first goal, I do wonder if this is where maybe playing Calafiori there instead of Timber might have not necessarily worked against a player like Savinho, just because I do look back to that North London derby at how good Timber was on that left-hand side, and how well he's able to deal with those kind of tricky, more nimble players, because he's just naturally got a lower centre of gravity, whereas Calafiori is a taller, bit more gangly guy, and you just feel against players that are shorter, quicker, that could be something that could quite easily happen against him just naturally because of the way that he's built. But I think apart from that, he had a really good game. Obviously, we'll get on to talk about his goal, but I thought that was his only moment in the game that I thought he could have done better in. But I think as well, Partey was completely lost on that first goal as well. He didn't know who to track, whether to go for Bernardo Silva, who's charging off to the right, whether to go for Haaland, who's running in on goal. If you look at the replay, Partey's head is just constantly moving left to right, just because he doesn't know who to track. And in the end, he just ends up going for either of them and just kind of runs in between them. And then it was just frustrating how Haaland got our two centre halves so easily. And it's just such a tidy finish, isn't it, from such a good player? I hate to say, but yeah, frustrating start.
Sorry, go on, carry on.
No, that was what I was going to say, mate. I was just trying to wrap it off.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. Bit of an introduction there. A bit of a lag. Apologies. But do you know what? The weird thing was, I haven't even mentioned it. Within the first 30 seconds, like Havertz and Rodri had bashed into each other, and it sort of set the tone for this. Was a very tetchy. This was a proper, like, two teams that are starting to hate each other match. I kind of loved parts of it. So Havertz bashing into Rodri, nothing in it. Carry on. I mean, I'm just even looking at it on Twitter. So when they equalise, we'll come to the equaliser to make it 2-2. Haaland picks the ball up inside the net, throws it against the back of Gabriel's head. I bet you haven't seen that. I've just retweeted it. Like, interesting. We'll park that because we're going to get into refereeing at some stage. But and then also you've got, within the first minute or two, Haaland absolutely careering into Saliba. When Saliba wins the ball, when he goes after him, it was premeditated. He's gone after him. He's cleaned Saliba out. To me, probably a yellow card, but Michael Oliver's, he's obviously decided, do you know what, it's early in the game. Interesting. We'll just park that for now because we're going to have lots to say about Michael Oliver. But yeah, it was, to me, after 8 minutes, I was thinking to myself, this is going to be a long, long afternoon. And then even after they scored, they still dominated. And then we get to one of our few chances, which is on 22 minutes. Ricardo Calafiori. That was such a weird goal. Like, I don't know how you feel, James. I'd love to get your view on it. But for me, the way he struck that ball, with kind of like, it was like I described it online as a six-a-side goal, because it was like his side foot, it wasn't placed with too much power. He didn't leather it, but it just sort of curled away from Ederson in the top corner. And I'll be honest with you, I jumped about 4 foot in the air. What was your kind of reactions and general thoughts about the goal itself?
It really reminded me of that Saliba goal against Bournemouth a couple of seasons ago. Just unexpected player, brilliant goal. And at the end of it, you're wondering, has he meant to do that? Or is that a cross that's just gone so far away from his intended target that it's ended up in the back of the net? But no, I genuinely think he meant to do that. And it was just a beautiful goal. Just like you say, no power on it whatsoever, really, but just placed so perfectly into that top right-hand corner. And I think it goes to show actually the benefit of having a left-sided player, left-footed player on that side of the pitch, because we haven't really got anyone on that left-hand side that's just been able to hit the ball, take shots from that side of the pitch. So, yeah, I was really pleased with him in that sense. Great goal. And like you, I think just because it was so unexpected, I celebrated that absolutely wildly, because we were so up against it at that point. We hadn't really had a sniff in the game. And like I said before, if we'd have conceded again, then I really do fear that we wouldn't have come out of this game with anything whatsoever. And it just gave us that chance, that goal, to refigure, regroup. And to be honest, even after the goal, it took us about 5-10 minutes to really get a grip on the game. But without that goal, I think we would have struggled today.
And I think just before that goal, just before we scored that goal, or was it the Gabriel goal? Sorry, they're merging into one. There was an instance where, because I want to pick up, I'm diving into some VAR stuff here and some refereeing stuff here, if you don't mind indulging me, mate, because I think it was the Gabriel goal. Bernardo Silva had knocked the ball away when Arsenal were about to take a free kick. Michael Oliver decides nothing wrong with that. Jeremy Doku, though, that one particularly infuriated me. And I remember saying to my wife watching it, Doku's just kicked the ball away there. So we've got Howard Webb coming on that PR travesty of a show that he does with Michael Owen during the week, saying, well, this is the reasons, and okay, maybe they should have booked. He did actually say they should have booked João Pedro for the Brighton game. I want to see what Howard Webb has to say about this, because if we get more nonsense, which is, well, he's given Trossard. We'll come to the Trossard thing. He's given him no option. He's got to send him off. Where's the consistency? Once again, for the third time in 5 games this season, we're talking about consistency. Referee not giving a card or red card for choke slamming on Havertz for day one. We've got João Pedro not giving a yellow card, and we've got Jeremy Doku kicking the ball away, and the referee deciding, well, there's nothing there. And they talked about this at half time, and this is what annoyed me, because I think it was Merce said, well, yeah, he has kicked the ball away, and you can't say, well, Arsenal players are they're not ready, or there isn't an instance, because Havertz has got the ball, Doku kicks it back, Rice was there to take it. This is an exact example of one rule applied to one team, but not applied to the others. Can I get some comments? Because we need to get into... We haven't really talked too much about it. We talked a little bit about the goal, the Calafiori one, but as you can tell, I'm on one today because I'm infuriated that we are in September and we're already talking about 3 instances in 5 games that I feel like we've been shafted.
Yeah, and 2 red cards in 5 games. Like, we're a team that has had impeccable discipline since, I think, what was it, that season where Martinelli got 2 yellow cards so quickly, and we had quite a few players sent off that season, Cedric at Spurs, and then last season and the season before, our discipline has been phenomenal, whereas this season, that all seems to have gone to pot through, I don't want to say no fault of our own, because I do think some of the blame lies with Trossard today, but again, the refereeing is so incredibly dubious and questionable. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see Howard Webb coming out again saying that Doku should have been booked for passing the ball away. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he comes up with some sort of excuse to defend Doku doing that, because he's got to save his own skin here as well, because he is an absolute sham at the minute, Howard Webb. He is a laughingstock of the entire Premier League. What he's done to the officiating is beyond comprehension. It is the worst in not just Europe, the world, by a country mile. It is so, so poor in one of the biggest commodities in sport. And it just cannot be allowed to go on like this. So, yeah, on the Doku one, I mean, I saw some people on the City side of the fence today saying that, oh, you know, he's just telling Declan Rice where to play the ball. He's just kicking it further back for him. But he ends up taking the free kick where he's standing from originally anyway. You know, it's quite obvious what he's trying to do. And it's not just the Doku thing. I mean, it's happened across, you know, so many games since the Declan Rice incident. We've not seen it punished. And the thing that frustrated me most about the Trossard sending off is that I'm not defending Trossard. I think he should know better than to kick the ball away in that situation. I don't think he's necessarily doing it to delay the restart. If you look at the freeze frame, you can actually see Martinelli running off to the left. So Trossard could be thinking, I'm trying to start a counter-attack here. But Michael Oliver is so quick to get the yellow card out. You know, he doesn't need to do it necessarily that quickly. Unless he's so programmed and robotic in his brain, laws of the game, laws of the game, laws of the game. But I think any good referee should just take 10, 15, 20 seconds, however long they need, just to be like, okay, need to think about the situation here and then produce the yellow card. But the fact he just withdrew it so quickly, and then again, it's just that smug look they've got on their face. Well, you've not given us any choice here. You know, I've got to give it. But again, going back to Trossard, I don't think he should kick the ball away. I don't think it matters that Doku did that in the first instance, because these players should know how incompetent and how inconsistent these referees are. Just do not give them a decision to make. As soon as you hear that whistle, stop. Do not do anything. Do not let them have a decision to make. So yeah, frustrated in that sense from Trossard. I still think the decision is barbaric. I don't really want to see these types of sending offs that are deciding games, you know, in any match. Can any real genuine football fan say they want to see it? Like, I get it. If a player is consistently delaying the restart, then they should be punished. But for one-off instances, do you really want to see something as harsh as a second yellow to send a player off in a massive game? I don't think that's right. I don't know about you, Chris, but I really don't think that's right.
Nope. Do you know, this is the same referee that refereed Arsenal versus Manchester City at the Emirates last season. And we all recall Kovacic basically putting one in on Ødegaard whilst already on a yellow. That was right in front of me. I remember screaming, saying, well, he's off. He's off. And at that time, Michael Oliver was happy to say, do you know what? Let's just diffuse this. Let's have some common sense. Well, there wasn't common sense because he should have had a yellow. It was arguably a red card. And yet it seems to be that there are rules being applied for certain teams that aren't being applied for other teams. Last week, we had William Saliba just holding onto the ball for a few seconds. Yellow card. We had Tottenham players knocking the ball away. Do you know what? That one was a bit of a grey area. I'm happy to just park that. But the Brighton one and this one happening within the first few weeks of the season, happening, the inconsistency, it's just infuriating for me. And I'm really raging about it because it completely changed the entire composition of the football match. And the second half, as we know, essentially became Man City just peppering us and attacking us. We will get to the second half in a second. But before that, let's talk about Gabriel's goal. Again, I jumped up when Calafiori scored. But and I said this online, in the moments before. So I want to get your take on the Gabriel goal. But in the moments before that goal, they zoomed in on Kyle Walker and Gabriel, and Kyle Walker was doing this weird sort of tap thing, and it's not the first time that I've seen this. He does this all the time. Last season at the Emirates, because Martinelli, when we were shooting towards the North Bank, I'm North Bank corner flag, and Martinelli was picking the ball up on the left-hand side, and Walker was doing the same thing. He does this weird sort of tap, as if it's like to try and put them off. And Martinelli wasn't having anything there, and I think Martinelli ultimately ended up getting the goal that won us the game. But today, Walker's done exactly the same thing, but Gabriel just takes one step forward. He drops his shoulder, goes behind him, and it's a fantastic goal to put us 2-1 up.
Yeah, absolutely. Our king of Brazil, he is just phenomenal, isn't he? And not just a goal today, defensively, as he has been all season, absolutely sublime. I know Haaland scored today, but I mean, just didn't really give him an inch. I saw an interesting stat towards the end of the first half that they only had 1 XG in the second 45, and you'd have thought, given that they were coming up against an Arsenal team with 10 men, we were sat back, they'd have had way, way more than that. So it goes to show how good of a job he did and the defence did in keeping City quiet in that second half. But our set pieces at the minute, they keep saying it. And I'm actually getting a bit sick of them saying it on Sky Sports, that whenever we take a set piece or a corner, it just feels inevitable that we're going to score from it. And that's what the opposition feel as well. I'm not entirely sure that's the case, but I do think we are very, very, very good at corners. And we have an excellent set piece taker in Bukayo Saka, and another one on the other side of the pitch in Declan Rice. But that delivery from Bukayo Saka is as important as the goal, because it is in swinging at such pace right on top of Ederson, who does dreadfully, by the way. And then Gabriel is there, right place, right time. The understanding those two have got on the corners is such a powerful weapon to have in your arsenal. And 2-1. Happy days, Chris.
Mate, I was at half time. I went for a walk with the wife again to de-stress myself, and she said, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "Over the moon." Like, teams don't generally tend to score too many at City. Like, they don't tend to. They concede. City have been conceding, but it's been ones this season. Like, they have generally been a team that will always get goals. And to me, 2-1 up at half time, particularly after that first 10 minutes. Beyond my wildest dreams. I thought that it was absolutely fantastic. And at half time, I was trying to reflect on what was good, what was bad, what was ugly. I thought there were certain players. I thought Saka was quiet at times. I thought Havertz was battling, but he was quiet. I thought Trossard was quite quiet. And we talked about the sending off. He's a silly boy for doing it. But here's a theory. I've got a question on the actual card. I want to get your thoughts on it. If you're Leandro Trossard and you've seen Bernardo Silva kick the ball away, and you've seen Doku kick the ball away, do you think there's an argument from his side, which is, well, the referee is clearly not doing that, and it's like in the last minutes of added time, so he's probably not going to do anything, so it doesn't really matter? Do you think that's a mitigating circumstances? A little bit. I mean, ultimately, I think we both agree that he was a silly boy, but what do you think on that? Do you think that plays a part in it? Because he's thinking, well, you're not booking City players, so you're not going to book me.
Partly, but I also don't think there is an argument for it, because going back to what I said earlier, you just cannot trust the inconsistency and the ineptitude of the referees. Doesn't matter if, City have done that 10 times throughout the game. If you're giving him that decision to make and you're wearing an Arsenal shirt, there's a possibility that he's going to reach for that second yellow. And as soon as that second yellow is in the air, it's done. You're off. It's not going to change. VAR can't overturn that. Or can they? I can't remember. But either way, like, you're giving the referee a decision to make there. And I just think, given the state that the officiating is in, you just cannot, you just can't be putting yourself in that sort of situation. It doesn't matter what the opposition do. I totally get your point. And, if we were sitting in Crown Court and mitigating circumstances came into play, definitely you would have a good case for it, but you don't on a football pitch. And like I say, when the yellow's in the air, like John G says in the chat, they can't overturn it. So just don't do it.
Yeah, it was silly, and it made a really, really difficult second half for us. And you and I think we agree. So even at 2-1 up, if someone said to me at half time, would you take 2-2, given you're down to 10 men? In the cold light of day, I probably would have said, yeah, because City are just going to pepper the goal. And if you look at the total, I'll give you some stats now, mate. Before I do that, I don't know if I mentioned we're sponsored by Ruth Breck Art, and that is incredibly tardy of me. If you want to check out some of the stuff that Ruth does, check her out on Etsy. You can see some of her amazing work that she does. She's got a variety of different things, amazing pictures that she does. So check Ruth out, check her details out. Some amazing work that she does. But yeah, anyway, back to some of the numbers. 77% possession for City, 33 total shots. But this is an interesting one. Only 11 of them on target. And this is what it felt for most of that second half. They were pot shotting, weren't they? It's difficult because we've conceded like in the dying seconds, but how did you feel at like the halfway stage? I think on like 75, 80 minutes, I was a bit like, they're just pot shotting us here. We've got a real opportunity. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, it really felt eerily similar to what we saw against Spurs. That they were just putting it out wide, cross into the box. The amount of times it came back to Diaz on the edge of the box, he would have a pot shot, then Kovacic would have a shot, Akanji would have a shot, Gabriel would have a shot, and all the important players that you'd want, like Bernardo Silva, Haaland, just weren't really seeing the ball. And I really felt towards the dying embers of the game when Jesus came on, and there was a moment where Bernardo Silva twice in a row, I think, just got out-muscled by him. I thought, right, this is it. We've got them here. Just see it out. There's a couple minutes to go. We can do it. Wasn't to be, but going back to your original point, I don't want to say it was comfortable because I was on the edge of my seat. Raya did make some very good saves. It has to be said. He was very important in that second half. If it wasn't for him, we would have lost this game. And there was that Gabriel chance that came fairly close. But no, it wasn't like we were getting terrorized by City. It wasn't like they. Let me put it this way: I was a lot more scared of them in the first 20 minutes than I was in that last, in the entirety of the second half. I think it would have been interesting had we conceded earlier, if that would have given them a bit more impetus to have really tried to open us up. I mean, look, I know it's not going to make anyone feel better given how the game's played out, but imagine we had conceded right at the start of the second half, which I think a lot of us probably potentially would have feared happening. When we played Brighton, within 10 minutes, we'd already conceded and we were holding on at that point. We're away at the Etihad. City score on 50-odd minutes and we hold out for 2-2. We'd all be buzzing, wouldn't we? Obviously, it's not played out that way. And this feels a lot more painful because we were within a couple of minutes of getting 3 points at the Etihad with 10 men. And I still think we can still say we put in one of the most efficient, arguably world-class performances that's been shown at the stadium. But yeah, no, I'm getting lost on my trail of thought, Chris. This is what happens when you do a game so close after the final whistle. There's so many emotions running around.
Yeah, and so it's backs to the wall, and Raya made lots of saves, and Michael Oliver was getting a bit sort of prissy about Arsenal players delaying restarts and stuff like that. But again, I've got to say, unfortunately, when you've got a referee who is clearly 60-70% with the home side making decisions and not deciding, like I'm just watching the Doku kick away as well. It's right in Michael Oliver's eye line. There's absolutely no way that he doesn't see this. He sees it kicked away. The Arsenal players around him are putting their hands up saying he's just kicked the ball away. He just does nothing. It's farcical. So we also had within the first few minutes, Haaland careering into Saliba. And then after, we're going to talk about the City's goal, but before we do that, we also had Haaland careering into Gabriel. This man Haaland picked up 0 yellow cards. He picked up nothing in the entire game. We've got a couple of clear instances where he's just got a bit too pumped and he's gone into players. And Michael Oliver's, then he's trying to diffuse the situation. But with Leandro Trossard, no, I don't want to diffuse the situation. I don't want to let common sense play. I just feel like, making this a spectacle, and I'll be the one that's the center of attention. And he's supposed to be our best referee, but unfortunately for me, he's just an example as to why the PGMOL needs to just be ripped up and started again, because it's farcical. But let's talk about the second half then. So batten down the hatches. Let's actually talk about how proud we are of the way in which we set up. So Arsenal essentially said, we've got the goal, we've got the lead, we're gonna hold you guys up and see how you get on. They pot shotted us. They've absolutely smashed us in terms of possession and all of that sort of stuff. And maybe City fans will be chirping around how, oh well, you just come for the draw again. We didn't. We came for the draw based on the
circumstances.
That's a really, really good point. We came for the draw because we were clearly being shafted, and we're doing this live straight after the whistle. So I'd love to hear Arteta's perspective. But right now, it feels like we're coming up against referees. We're almost we're the poster boys for contentious decisions, and the opportunity for the PGMOL to go on a PR offensive, which is, we're in the right, so just accept our view because you're all plebeians. I feel like you need to talk me down from the ledge because I'm going into a ranty rage. But shall we talk about the goal? So I feel like we just switched off. We were so brilliant for the entire.
Well, no, Chris, I'm gonna disagree with it. I don't think we did switch off. I think it's just good fortune. That they could have had 100 pot shots. All it takes is for one of those balls to ricochet against a player and fall kindly to someone in the City box. As the clock is winding down, they're putting more and more and more players into the box. They're taking more risks. Naturally, there's going to be a chance like that will come. And like I said, I don't know if I said it to you earlier on in the podcast or before we went live, but it's just good fortune that John Stones is in the right place at the right time. Bit of a melee in the box, bounces to him. He's there to put it in. I don't really want to overanalyze that because I don't think that goal should ruin a really good defensive performance. I do think in the build up to the goal, and this is me being hypercritical, but Gabriel Jesus has to do better on that side of the pitch. Do you know where he did? He stops the corner being taken.
Yep. James Hope saying the same thing.
Yeah, he held the ball up for way too long there. He just needs to boot it down the pitch. And I'm not saying that if he does that, we go on to win this game. But City get a corner. They do nothing with that one. Then they take one from the other side, and that's the one that results in the goal. So, it's a domino effect of events, and I don't want to hold Jesus too accountable. But in that game state, just boot it. Just boot it. Do not bother trying to hold it up. You've got the entire City team about 6 yards away from our goal. The last thing you want to do is turn around and try and play out from the back because that is not the time or the place to do it. So I was frustrated with Jesus on that one. And if I am pointing the blame at anyone for us conceding, I don't want to say it's him, but I do think he played a part in it. But you know what's frustrating me most about the game, Chris, coming out of the game is some of the really lazy analysis. And I've just seen this on Twitter from Roy Keane saying he wasn't convinced in Arsenal's performance. And quoted as saying, I just think they need to show a little bit more in these games. Well, you're going away to City, arguably the best team in the world. What would you do at halftime?
Sorry to interrupt. Or that has ever existed in the Premier League era. Arguably.
Exactly. Well, is it even arguable? Like 4 Premier League titles in a row. They are, without a doubt, probably the best Premier League team at the moment, or in history. What do you do at halftime if you're any other team in the Premier League? Do you go out, play expansive football, bring on your attacking players, think, yeah, we could do this, we can go toe-to-toe with Man City? No. If you're any logical team, you do not do that against the best side in the world away from home. And I think Arsenal got it bang on, taking off Bukayo Saka, bringing on Ben White, going to a back 5, having Martinelli as the out ball, who did a fantastic defensive job. And they just said, look, we're a brilliant defensive side. Try us, come and give it a go. And we've come out of this game with a point. If we were under Arsene Wenger, he might not have had the nous to do that. We probably would have lost this game quite comfortably at halftime. So I think we did exactly what we had to do, Chris. I don't care if people call it kamikaze football or it's boring to watch or it's horrible. This is a results business, and we're doing exactly what we need to do to get those results. So I'm very happy with how we played in the second half, and I can't really complain.
Yeah, so let's park. I'm gonna try and park the rage of. I've got for those of you listening on the audio platform and not live. Well, you won't be able to see this anyway, but I'm looking at my Twitter on the other screen here, and a message from Sky Sports News, October the 10th, 2023, on the Kovacic foul on Erdegaard. Michael, and this is Howard Webb, Michael Oliver doesn't want to have a negative impact on the game by overreacting. I'm not saying, I'm just going to pause there. And then saying Kovacic was extremely fortunate not to be sent off. Interesting. I'm not going to say, I'm going to leave that without any perspective. I'm just going to let you guys think about that, as we've just had a referee today who has doesn't want to have a negative impact on the game by overreacting. But anyway, let's park this game. Let's focus more on the outcome, which, as you said, and we talked about right at the start, mate, we've beaten Aston Villa away. We've beaten Tottenham away. We've got a draw at the Etihad. 3 of the toughest games that we're going to face in the season. We are 2 points off City at the moment, and we've gone through a week in which we've had 3 away games. City have had an extra day rest on top of us. We're missing Martin Erdegaard, and we talked about this on Thursday. If you'd have said to me before the Tottenham game, you can have 4 points from Tottenham and City, I'd have said, bloody hell, I'll take that. Where's your... And I think the emotions of some of the refereeing stuff is probably clouding some of my initial judgment and the rage, but I feel like tomorrow or even on Tuesday, I'm going to be really excited. And in fact, I'm super excited about the way this Arsenal team is developing, because we aren't even in top gear at the moment. We're having to deal with injuries, suspensions, and it feels like this is a team that's ready to compete and challenge for the title. What's your kind of initial gut feel, trying to park the initial raw emotions of losing in the not drawing in the last few seconds?
Look, I'm obviously really frustrated about that, but I'm still excited. You know, I'm not going to let that last minute win almost feels like a winner for City, doesn't it? But that last minute equaliser for City dampen the mood for me, because, like you say, 4 points from Spurs and City away from home with Atalanta sandwiched in between is a bloody good week. Like, it's a really, really good week. And when you throw Villa away into the mix as well, who are doing brilliantly well at Villa Park, 7 points from those 3 tough away games. Like I said, right at the start, we've got them all out the way, and there's still a week left of September to go. So you can't really grumble with that. And if we can get players fit in the second half of the season, and play the likes of Villa, play the likes of Spurs and City, all at the Emirates, that should be hugely advantageous. So yeah, it's a great result for me still. Like, I'm really, really happy with the result. Definitely would have taken it pre-game, no matter the context. And I think, there was a lot of analysis, a hell of a lot of analysis actually, before the game from the likes of Micah Richards, Roy Keane, basically the whole Sky Sports panel, apart from Theo Walcott, who said a draw would be a good result for Arsenal, that was saying that Arsenal need to show more in these games. They need to have more impetus. They need to win one of these games if they're going to be a title-winning team. Well, City haven't lost at home in 48 games now. They're not a side that you simply swan up to and get a win against. And we took 4 points off them last season. The City games were not the games where we lost. And the narrative always seems to switch. Like, for me, it always used to be draw away against your title rivals, win at home, get the job done. That'll do it. And now it seems to be you have to win at home and away. And you expect us to do that against Manchester City, who, barely ever lose a game. So I find that interesting, really, really interesting. It seems to switch whenever it's Arsenal, because I think any other side, Liverpool, United, Chelsea, whoever, 4 points against City, everyone would be saying that's a fantastic record against them for our season. And when did City last beat us? The season before last, we've played them in the Community Shield, at home, away again, 4 times. They've not beaten us in 4 games now. So we I'm not saying we have City's number, but we know that we can go toe-to-toe with this side. And I definitely have Arsenal down as title challengers. I'm buzzing for that game against Bolton on Wednesday, where we'll be there going with each other. So that's going to be exciting. And then look at the run of fixtures we've got after that. I've just got them up in front of me now. We've got Leicester at home in the league, Southampton at home in the league, Bournemouth away, Liverpool at home. And then it does get pretty tough in November, where we travel to Newcastle, Inter Milan away, Chelsea away. We've got another one of those weeks. So, yeah, that's going to be tough. But look, for the here and now, we've got some very winnable fixtures coming up and quite a lot of games at the Emirates as well. So lots to be excited about.
Yeah, and again, like we talked about on Thursday, on like pre-season, I looked at this particular period. I looked at basically up until, I think I might have even said to you guys in one of the preview pods, or like the first week of the season or something, when we were talking about who's going to win the league, can we win the league? I think my response was, ask me when we get towards October, because Villa, Tottenham, City away, like I'm super nervous about that. We could be 5, 8, 9 points away from the team at the top of the league. As it stands, we're 2. We've gone through this and we're 2 points away. Like, we were a few seconds away from getting what would have felt like a justice result, like against 12 men, because again, I feel like the referee today was an absolute homer. And I'm quite impressed at the resilience of this Arsenal team. I keep having to remind myself how good we are defensively, because I go into these games and I think, oh, City, they're just going to score goals, or oh, Tottenham, they're just going to score. Villa, they're just going to score goals. But let's look at the reality. We've conceded 0 against Wolves. We've conceded 0 against Villa. We conceded against Brighton when they caught us in that 5-10 minute period where we were trying to recalibrate ourselves because we were down to 10 men. So they kind of caught us in a moment where we weren't set. And we've conceded 2 today against City. First goal, we'll admit, probably quite poor. Second goal, as you said, maybe there's a slight bit of fortune in there, but actually also the narrative and the situation in the game has resulted in us needing to be backs of the wall, because I think we've lost a really interesting second half if it wasn't for the Trossard sending off. I think it would have been quite an interesting game of cat and mouse, because I think Arsenal would have hit City in transition. They'd have played a certain way. A little something. If anyone's got any questions, you can fire a few questions in the chat. We'll see if we can get through to them before James and I wrap up today. But apparently, and James and I are doing this live straight after the whistle, so we haven't heard any of the commentary, but apparently John Stones has been complaining or making comments about Arsenal's dark arts, which I find thoroughly ironic given the type of team that Man City are with some of their dark arts, and the fact that they are literally a team that's being right now in a process of being dragged through the courts because of their charges. And you've got someone like John Stones having the brass tacks to talk about, oh, dark arts Arsenal going down. Rotational fouling is literally what Man City have spent an entire almost 7-8 years doing. And we've even seen it on the Man City All or Nothing documentary, where Arteta's talking as the assistant coach at City about make the foul, rotational foul, do this stuff. Man City are masters of it. So John Stones having the cheek to make comments like that really does make me laugh. I just want to get your initial thoughts on that before we go into it. If anyone's got any questions, fire away.
I couldn't care less, Chris, because it happens to us all the bloody time. We see it all the time. We saw it so much last season. Teams going down when they're holding on for a draw, when they're holding on for a win. Every team does it. Every single team does it. So in that game state as well, where we're trying to hold on for a point, they would have done the same. So, it's if the shoe was on the other foot, I'm convinced they would have done it as well. And given everything that goes against us almost all of the time, I'm really not fussed about it. And I think Arsenal had to do that to try and take the sting out of the game.
Yep. And as Trav says, people in glass houses, John Stones, or about, Des says, how about dark arts in the boardroom?
And I think, Chris,
how much time did Silva spend on the deck as well?
Sorry, I do think, I know obviously a lot of it feels like it's deliberate, and I'm sure that 90% of it is, but, we saw Calafiori go off today. We saw Timber go off. I'm pretty sure a lot of these guys are dead on their feet. They've played 3 away games, done a hell of a lot of travelling. We've had 1 less day to recover than City. They're just seizing up towards the end of the game. I don't think they've necessarily got injuries, but Timber towards the end of the game, just both of his legs, quite literally look dead. So, I get it. There's the time wasting aspects, but there's also a bit of reality that has to come into this. 3 away games, 3 incredibly intense games, and probably the most intense 45 minutes this Arsenal team are going to play concentration and physicality-wise this season. So, in another sense, I do think part of it was genuine as well.
Yep, absolutely. Interesting. Interesting comment. Actually, I'm going to talk about. We want to have a word. If you've got any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. It's not really a question, but Melissa Broadbent has said, let's have some words about. Because I'm trying to just get into good vibes at the moment, because after the dust has settled, I will feel very happy about this situation at the moment. We need to do some predictions for Bolton at home and then Leicester at home, which will be an interesting game. Taking the management to that one, so hopefully she's a good luck charm. But some little thoughts on ESR scoring yesterday. That was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and he's had a good start to the season. What is it? 2 goals and an assist now as well, and Reece Nelson scoring. Eddie Nketiah got one the other day as well. So really pleased for all the Hale End boys to be doing so well. The only thing I would say on it is I've seen a lot of calls from Arsenal fans on Twitter saying, "Oh, I wish we had a player like this now." Does my head in that. Really does my head in, because imagine we did have Erdegaard, we had Marino. We wouldn't even be talking about Emile Smith-Rowe. It's just the fact that we've got a good few players injured in that position where Emile Smith-Rowe plays. And we all know how good Smith-Rowe is. We all knew it. We all knew exactly what Fulham were getting. And I think a lot of us expected this type of performance from him. I think there is a bit of jealousy in there that he's not doing it in an Arsenal shirt. But look, we don't know what's going to happen with Emile Smith-Rowe this season. I really want him to stay fit. I want him to have a cracking season, get himself back in contention for England. What I don't want is for him to be so good that he gets a move to Manchester United or something like that. But I want to see him do well. And that just wasn't going to happen at Arsenal. So there's no point even thinking that we should have him back in this Arsenal team.
Yeah. Again, I just want him to have a good career. We got half decent money for him. It might feel like that was a little bit on the cheap side, but hey, I'm like you. I just want him to have a nice career. We're going to do next couple of minutes. If anyone's got any questions, you can feel free to pop them in the chat before James and I clock off for this slightly later one than Build, because of the antics at half time and all of that jazz. I thought, James, it was interesting, Rodri coming off with what looked like a bit of an injury. Given the animosity that I'm feeling towards City at the moment, like that potentially could be quite a big issue for them in future. And as much as you don't want to see injuries on players, I'm not going to say that I was sad to see the man go off, because he's an absolute, excuse my French, shithouser anyway. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of how bad that injury is, because if he's out for any extended period of time, there's going to be some questions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We know that City struggle without him, but it's not like they haven't got players that can come in and do a job against the majority of the teams in the Premier League. They brought on Kovacic. They've got Gundogan back in the side now. They've got Nunez on the bench. So they're pretty well equipped, but there isn't a player quite like Rodri. I'm not saying I wish he's out for an extended period of time, but we're in a situation where we're missing so many key players in Marino, Erdegaard, Tomiyasu, Zinchenko. We've got our fair share of players out, so it would be interesting to see if he is out for a sustained period. But knowing them, I doubt he will be.
Yeah, probably not. Right. Okay. Let's talk just for 5 minutes or 5 minutes just about the upcoming week that we've got. So we've just gone through 3 very tough matches in the space of 8 days. We've picked up 4 points and a point in the Champions League. Very happy with that. Bolton on Wednesday, I think it is. Thoughts on that? Let's do score, and then is this a case of play all the kids or rotational? What's your kind of gut feel on that?
Excited for Bolton, because I'm not too sure what to expect. Even more excited I'm going to get to see you, Chris. So that's always a bonus. I wouldn't be playing an 11 full of kids, but I would probably like to see an almost polar opposite 11 to what we saw today. I think those players are dead on their feet. So I don't want to see Saka, Martinelli, any of those boys anywhere near the starting 11. Obviously, Trossard's going to be banned for the game, so he won't get a look in. I'd like to see Lewis Skelly start. I thought he was decent for the 10-ish minutes that he had on the pitch. So obviously, hard to judge a player coming into such an intense game, but he's looked really good throughout pre-season. So I'd like to see him start. I would like to see Kivior start, because he's not had many minutes. Maybe bring Ben White in, because he didn't start today. Sterling, definitely to get his first Arsenal start. Jesus, I'd start him. Nwaneri, definitely got to start him. Jorginho, we've got options, but they are, running pretty thin. So maybe a couple of the players that were on the bench today, some of the younger ones, could get a look in other than Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly. Maybe Heaven, he could play at right back. It's just so annoying that we don't have, the likes of Tomiyasu or Zinchenko for this game, because you'd think they'd be nailed on to start. So, we can rotate, but I don't want to see an entire 11 of kids. I just want it to be quite sensible, 30% kids and 70%, the likes of Sterling, Jesus, Jorginho, etc. How about you?
Yeah, I don't think we will, but I think this is an opportunity to get minutes into legs. So Neto in goal, you've got Kivior, you've got Miles Lewis-Skelly, perhaps, as you said, Heaven. We can play. I think Timber and White need to be put to one side, so not those guys, but Jorginho to get minutes. You've got the likes of Gabriel Jesus could get minutes, because what we need to do is build these players up so that effectively when we need to call on them in the league, they've had enough minutes in their legs. So I think we're going to see a nicely rotated side for Wednesday, and I think that is absolutely perfect. Players get a rest. It's been a tough week. Give them the opportunity. Give some of those players that have played today, that have done hard minutes today, just give them time off the pitch. And then we look to Leicester on Saturday, 3 p.m. kickoff. Let's get cracking now. Let's start to build a momentum of games, because we've had a really, really tough period. But I'm quite excited to see what this Arsenal team can do in the coming weeks. Predictions for Bolton. I mean, Amanda's on a ship somewhere, so let's do our predictions, and then hopefully she's not paying attention. And then when she comes back, we'll be like, oh yeah, we predicted that result. It was fine. But just for the purposes of people listening in, what's your gut feel for Wednesday?
For Wednesday, I'm going to go 3-0. And then for Saturday, I think we're due a big win this season. And I know it's going to be tough for some of the players we've got out, but I really fancy us to really do a number on Leicester. I'm going to go for 4-0 in that game.
Nice. I think that it'll be a couple of goals, because I think we'll be rotated and it won't be as fluid as the first team, but I think a 2-0 against Bolton. And then I've got a feeling it might be another comfortable sort of 2-0, because we're still sort of finding our way. We've had players injured. It's been a very bitty sort of start to the season. Leicester will probably sit off us. I'll take 2-0. Thank you very much. That's my kind of prediction. We only had one question so far in the question. Oh, no, okay. We had two questions, but one was Trav saying, I think Skelly mouthed off to the ref. I don't think we want to comment on that too much. But Patrick Carlson, I feel like this is a question which is a leading question, but try and answer it in an honest sort of neutral way. Why the referees are so bad? Like, why do you actually think it is? Is it lack of training? Is it a inherent bias? Like, what is it?
Well, I think it stems down from the top, because I just think the rules change. They seem to change season after season. And someone like Howard Webb, who is a massive egotist, who always wanted to make it about himself, I feel like that's now channeling into the referees of today. And this thing with the ball being kicked away is just, it shouldn't be something that is so, quickly applied in the game. It should be something that is looked at. You take 10, 15 seconds, contemplate how much it has affected the game, and then base your decision off of that. And it should be like that with kind of every decision that a referee makes. But he's trying to get all referees to sing from the same hymn sheet, and it's just not going to work. It's just definitely not going to work, because referees are human beings. The VAR seems to be as bad as it ever has been as well. Just look at some of the instances that happened yesterday. There was that instance in the Chelsea game with Somerville where there should have been a penalty. Vicario handling the ball outside the box. We spoke about refereeing decisions a hell of a lot last season. I feel like we're talking about it even more this season. So I really do think it won't happen, but he needs to resign. Someone more capable needs to come in. Maybe someone that we haven't seen before, that isn't an ex-referee, potentially just someone that is, able to apply the laws of rationale to the profession, and just make it better. Like, it has to be better. But the problem is, Chris, you've got so many referees that have been around for so long now, because it's not like, the turnover of players where every 10, 15 years you'll see new ones. With referees, they just seem to be around forever. So I think you just need need this breed of referees to slowly become extinct and the next to come through. But if they're, being managed and trained by people like Howard Webb, you're still going to have the same problems. So it needs to be done top all the way down to the people that are actually out there making decisions on the pitch.
Yep, I'm 100% with you, Matt. I think there's a root and branch change is needed, and I don't think that's going to happen when you still get the same people within the same networks doing the same things. I think there just needs to be, if football, and certainly elite football, was to properly look at itself in terms of the way that in this country it is refereed, they would have more checks and balances in place, which I just don't think happens at the moment. So broadly speaking, I think we're kind of stuck with this stuff. Hopefully when they bring in the semi-automated offsides, that'll help a little bit, but you're still going to get these nonsense decisions like we've had with the sending off today, like we've had with the inconsistency on the kicking the ball away, and like we've had every season where there's a rule that comes in that gets enforced for about 2 months for some teams and not others. And then it starts again. We are out of time for today. Quick answer, which I'll give to Davey GL, which is, can Trossard play on Wednesday? Maybe this is actually a positive thing.
No, he can't.
Because he can't. And he will serve his 1 match suspension in a game that he might not have played anyway. So in a way, it means he's available for Leicester and Arteta gets his options back. So if we're going to look at a silver lining, then that's one of them. James, any final thoughts today before we wrap up on this Ruth Beck sponsored podcast? And again, we thank Ruth for being part of the team here on the Same Old Arsenal podcast.
No, I'd only reiterate what I said previously, that I'm very happy with this point. I know it's not what we wanted, and it's always a damning blow when you concede right at the very end of the game. But 7 points, again, we've said it a lot, but 7 points from Villa away, Spurs away, City away is brilliant. I'm convinced that City won't get 6 points from 6 away at Spurs and Villa. In fact, I'd be very surprised if they did. And the same could be said for Liverpool. And just to have got those games out of the way. I mean, I'm doing a big sigh of relief because I just hate those games. And had they come in March, April, May, I think there'd be a lot more stress inducing. And the fact that we get to play the likes of City at home closer towards the end of the season, if we're in a good position, we can really rally behind the team, get the Emirates bouncing. It's exactly what we need, because we've played them away 2 seasons in a row at the end of the season, which I don't think has gone in our favour. So I'm excited to bring them back to the Emirates for sure. And it's a good point. We played well today. And, I don't buy into this nonsense that we came to park the bus or anything like that. We did come to play today when we could. And if it wasn't for that sending off, this could have been a very, very different game. But happy with the result. I think we're in a very, very good place, and bring on Bolton.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And just to go back to something that we'd previously spoken about, but you and I, when we were at Amanda's wedding, you said, I remember you talking about get some of these hard games out of the way. And I said to you, nope, I'm somebody that would prefer a whole run of easy games so you can build momentum. Well, actually, we're sort of building momentum now, having also had the tough games out of the way. So it turns out that you were right, Cookie. I was wrong. We'll absolutely take that, roll on Bolton, and hopefully roll on victory against Bolton and Leicester. From the both of us, thank you very much for listening. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. We will be back, maybe not post Bolton. We might save it until post Leicester, but give us a like, subscribe, all of that jazz in the if you're listening on YouTube. And until probably next weekend, keep it Arsenal, enjoy it, take the frustration and turn it into something positive is what I'd say in the final points. James, thank you very much. And nighty night from you, sir.
Yes, thank you as always, Chris, for leading us through this and making that, end of a game feel a lot more better.
Yeah, the catharsis. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, peeps, and we'll catch you within the next week. But from the Same Old Arsenal team, bye-bye.